Good evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, tonight's co-host, Tara Craver, to KLRN podcast radio show, Remember the Fallen. Tara will be doing her show from Craver Studios, located in gorgeous Highlands County, Florida.
We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
Honor, courage, commitment.
Tara is the widow of USMC veteran Karle Craver. Her husband passed in 2014. His death was finally deemed service-connected after his passing. Karle died never knowing whether his claim was approved or denied. But Tara, with determination and perseverance, continued her husband's fight, and after a 3.5-year fight, her claim was approved. Now, with passion in her heart, she continues to fight for all veterans. Tara is known for standing for justice for our veterans and their families against the Veterans Administration, so please sit back, relax, and get comfortable, and hope you enjoy tonight's shows.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of our listeners tonight to Remember the Fallen. My name is Tara Craver, and I'll be your co-host this evening. I want to yell out a big thank you to Sergeant Dave Matthews. Yes, Mr. Dave, I haven't forgotten you, for inviting me to be your co-host for Remember the Fallen. To give you all a little bit of a background, I am the widow of United States Marine Corps veteran Karle Craver. Back in the early 70s, my husband was stationed at Camp LeJeune, located in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Unbeknownst to us then, between 1953 and 1987, Camp LeJeune was the largest mass contamination in United States history. Fast forward, February 2014, my husband was diagnosed stage 4 esophageal cancer. 10 weeks later, I lost my husband. There are over 1 million affected by Camp LeJeune from the contamination. On the phone with me tonight, I have a woman by the name of Jill Dilgard calling from the state of Ohio, whose father filed for benefits in July 2017. Unfortunately, her father passed away 7 months later without neither being approved nor denied for his claim. Jill, would you like to fill in the audience on what all you've done since the passing of your father?
Yes. Like you said, Tara, in July of 2017, we found out about the Camp LeJeune water contamination. My dad was never notified by the Marine Corps, Department of Veterans Affairs, or the Navy that he had been contaminated. And he had numerous illnesses and cancers over the years, and nobody knew why he kept getting them. And then finally, by word of mouth, we found out about Camp LeJeune, and he had filed a claim. We never heard anything from the VA after his claim was filed until about November, and they were asking for documents to be submitted supporting his claim, proof of his illnesses, x-rays, lab work, and things like that. We submitted them, and several months passed, still nothing. And on February 26th of 2018, he lost his battle. A few days after that, I notified the Veterans Affairs of his death and asked them what would happen to his claim that was still pending. And they said it would probably be closed. At that time, I had asked if I could reopen the claim, and they told me no. Well, that didn't sit well with me because I felt they owed it to him since he had been there and suffered all these illnesses and diseases and went through the surgeries and the treatments and the numerous expense, thousands of dollars it cost him. And I felt justice wasn't served by closing that claim. So after speaking with you, Tara, and several others, they gave me some hope and said, don't give up. keep fighting, keep after VA. Tara even gave me some email addresses of people from central office in VA and said, email them, see what you come up with. Well, it was months and months of back and forth questions and delays, but finally in August of 2018, the VA allowed me to reopen his case. And I did, and they instructed me I had to fill out some forms. One would be a substitution of claimant to step in and reopen the claim on my father's behalf. Another one was accrued benefit due to a deceased beneficiary because my mother had passed just 3 months prior to my father. And then they allowed me to file for a burial allowance. So all these months go by, and I'm not getting much response for VA, checking on it. It's in its final phase. I found numerous mistakes in the case, the way they were processing it. I finally had to enlist the help of 2 of my senators.
Okay, before you go any further, Jill, there's a lot of listeners out there that aren't, some of them still to this day do not know 40 years later that they were exposed to anything. I guess what we need to add that Camp LeJeune, as I said earlier, is the largest mass contamination in United States history. And the U.S. government kept this hid for 30 or 40 years from the American public, which was one of the reasons why my husband and I didn't even know anything about it when he became ill. But in January 2017, the Veterans Administration decided, out of the graciousness of their hearts, I'm sure, that they would compensate veterans if they had one of the 8 illnesses. And one of them was bladder cancer, which was what the cancer was that your father passed away from, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So from there, you got the $2,000 burial allowance. Is that where we stopped?
We were just getting ready to go to that.
Okay. So what happened with the burial allowance?
Okay, in October of 2018, I received a check in the mail for $2,000 and a letter stating that they ruled his death was service-connected for the bladder cancer coming from the toxic water at Camp LeJeune, and he received the service-connected amount of $2,000. Then I asked what happened to the rest of the claim. Well, they were still gathering evidence, even though he had bladder cancer, like you mentioned, which is one of the presumptives. Finally, about the first week of February, another check arrived in the mail for 5 digits. And all of it said in the memo on the check was accrued benefits. No letter ever accompanied it.
If I remember our conversation, you received this in December?
Actually, February 6th was the date on the check.
Oh, of this year?
Of this year.
Okay.
And so I got on the phone and I called the VA and I said, I received a check for 5 digits. There's no letter with it. I haven't a clue what this is for. And they proceeded to tell me that they couldn't discuss anything with me until I had the letter in my hand, and then they could talk to me about it. So, in other words, the VA sent out a check for 5 digits, and I don't even have a clue what it's for. And I made numerous phone calls to the VA, and they kept promising me a letter was coming, never received it. They even told me they got a hold of supervisors. And finally, they admitted that no letter was ever generated. Somebody put it into one computer system when it should have been put into another.
And this was somewhere along the times that we were speaking on the phone, and I had told you that you should receive a letter with the breakdown that you got paid X amount of dollars for this year, you got paid X amount of dollars for that year with the cost of living also in the check. And you kept insisting that you did not receive a check from the VA with a breakdown of the 5-digit amount of money that you received. And this is when you kept calling the VA, and they insisted that they did send a letter, but you did not, or they did not.
Correct.
And then you finally got a hold of somebody, or no, if I remember our conversations right, you had told me that you got like 2 or 3 in one day when they said they would resend them to you?
Yes. In the mail, I got, actually, it was probably 3 or 4 letters. 2 of them were even duplicates. And basically, they were stating that an error was made and they overpaid me, and they would be recouping the amount.
They overpaid you, so the price of a Marine that was killed by the negligence of our own government, they accidentally overpaid his family?
Yes. And I said, what do you mean you overpaid? And they said, well, letters should be coming asking for the money back. Again, same thing over and over, no letters. And I finally got out of one of the employees that basically they said the family wasn't entitled to any money since the veteran had passed. And also, not only were they asking for the 5-digit amount back, they wanted his entire $2,000 burial back.
Okay.
And when I questioned them why, they said because when you filled out the paperwork, you had checked on there that your dad did a prepaid funeral plan, so we don't feel we should owe $2,000 for burial allowance when the funeral was already prepaid.
Okay, so that was considered one of their mistakes, which we know that the VA makes mistakes on an every other hourly basis. But besides making the mistake because your father prepaid for his funeral bill, the 5 digits that you received was also a mistake. And how did they say that was a mistake?
If my mother would have still been living, the money went to her. But since she passed 3 months prior, like I had said, then it should have been passed on to dependent children. Well, my father had no dependent children. We were all grown adults. And that's where this comes into play, because when you fill out these forms, you know, it does list the line of succession, who should get these. But clearly in one of the paragraphs, it says, if you don't have a surviving spouse, if you don't have dependent children, then any adult children could file for this. It doesn't matter the age. And that's why I was allowed to pursue this whole claim.
Jill, in your opinion, does the VA know what they're doing?
Absolutely not.
Do you think they are totally clueless, or do you think they have some sort of clue?
I would like to say they do know what they're doing. And to me, if anybody's familiar with Camp LeJeune, all these victims have the same slogan. And that's delay, deny until you die. And I honestly feel that's what happened to my father. They drug their foot knowing he was terminal, and they held off on paying, because through my continuous calling, I was able to find out that the VA finally admitted, well, we don't know why your dad never received a claim being approved or his money, because all evidence was there to prove it before he even passed.
Because they said they sent out a letter, or they didn't send out a letter, or your file, like my late husband's file, sat on somebody's desk underneath a paperweight for Lord knows how long, just like my husband Karle. He died 10 weeks after he was diagnosed. And he died before ever being approved nor denied. So, of course, like you, like me, we both reopened the case, yours as his child and me as a surviving spouse. So what do you think the VA should do to these Camp LeJeune families? What do you think? What's your opinion? How the VA should correct some of the atrocities that they're doing, some of the immoral things, in my opinion, that they're doing. What do you think they should do?
Number one, I think a time limit should be placed on them where they have a certain number of days to approve these claims. When the evidence is there, when you clearly see all the doctors' diagnoses on these illnesses, you have the lab work supporting it, the x-rays, the CAT scans. These veterans shouldn't have to prove anything because their service records prove they were there during that time, and they should automatically be service-connected.
And I totally agree.
There is no reason to delay these.
I totally agree with you. But we know the VA puts a high price on that God almighty dollar. It doesn't matter that my husband or your father was there when the United States of America needed them as Marines. But Lord help us if we need the VA as the families left behind when our own government is responsible for keeping this hid from us for almost 40 years. Correct?
Correct. You can't put a price tag on these lives. And all the victims that are so sick and suffering and dying and have already died, and the VA won't step up to help them. And they were promised when they were enlisted, we'll have your back, we'll have your back. And now you want to pay out. And I'm not the only one. I've talked to numerous families that have got checks in the mail and claims approved only for the VA to say, we overpaid you. We made a mistake. Some want to go back 13 years in recoupment. That's not right. These people should be paid the minute they stepped on that base because they knew they were contaminated.
And I absolutely agree, because 1 year after I lost Karl, because the VA made me jump through hoops and bounds, I lost my home a year later that belonged to he and I. And if they had approved my claim in the beginning, I would still have my home, or at least the choice to sell it if that had been my choice at the time. What do you think about the Marine Corps', what's the word for it? They're saying Semper Fi, always faithful. Let's just say a commander at Camp LeJeune, or, well, they're not all like that, so we can't put them all in, like a bunch of apples in one barrel. But always faithful. What do you think about that part of the slogan?
I believe that the ones responsible for this, that knew and covered it up, they shouldn't even be able to repeat them words, Semper Fi, because it means always faithful, and they weren't faithful. They kept this from these Marine veterans and their families.
They did, and I totally agree with you 100%. Totally. So, where do we stand now with you?
Right now, I'm basically in I guess you would call it an appeals process, because I don't want to send the money back. Not because I don't have it available to send back, but because that's like dismissing my dad in anything.
I know.
And they told me I should have an answer, hopefully in about 60 days, whether I get to keep the money or I have to send it all back. And I'm going to continue to fight tooth and nail and go to every hearing, every appeal possible, because it's not right. It's not right to any of these veterans.
You do know that I'm proud of you. And I had the pleasure, for the audience not knowing, a year ago this month, I had the pleasure, I happened to be in Ohio, and I met Jill. Jill and her family grew up, even though I was raised in Florida, grew up with my cousins, part of my extended family. So she's been a childhood friend, but my cousin introduced me to Jill. My cousin had told me about your dad, and I had the pleasure of meeting you a year ago this month. Or did you remember it was this month?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. And
it was a meeting I won't forget, because we were brand spanking new into this. Like I said, we never even found out to 2017 that my dad was exposed to the water contamination. And, you know, with your guidance and help and the information you knew, you know, just drove us to pursue it more.
Well, I appreciate
that.
Well, I appreciate that, Jill. And I'm just a little pawn in this big puddle, but I appreciate that very much. Well, Jill, we're starting to run out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go. We will do a follow-up, people, on Jill's travels through this mess with the VA that they call a system, and I will definitely do a follow-up with her, and we'll see what ends up being the end of this story. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you, Tara.
Bring in your Players Club card from any local casino to 7th Street Casino and join the Lucky 7 Club and win up to $250 in free slot play based on the status of your casino club card. Once you're a member, you can play and earn additional chances to win up to $250 in free slot play.
Sprint gives you the best of both worlds. A network built for unlimited and a great price. Our LTE Advanced network is now up to 2 times faster than before. And our total LTE coverage has increased by 30%. There's never been a better time to switch. Visit a Sprint store, sprint.com, or call 800-SPRINT-1 and make the switch to Sprint today.
Faster compared to 4G LTE. LTE Advanced requires a capable device. 4G LTE data coverage with roaming coverage and offer not available everywhere.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hello, I'm Hector Elizondo, Emmy Award-winning actor, and I want to talk to you about getting older. My body hurts, my joints ache, and sometimes I forget. I forget that doing all your own scenes for a movie isn't always the best decision. Especially when you're galloping side-saddle down a countryside road on a horse named Archibello, who seems to have only one speed, high. And pulling on his reins only seems to encourage him to go even faster. So, of course, my body hurts and my joints ache, but it's not because of my age. It's because I'm living my life. Oh, Archibello!
Don't let life pass you by. Take care of your brain health. It may just help you stay on top of your game.
As soon as this scene wraps, I'm going to kiss the ground, thank Archibello for his outstanding performance, feed him a carrot, and visit brainhealth.gov.
Find out how you can make the most of your brain as you age at brainhealth.gov.
Every day, 70,000 puppies or kittens are born in the U.S. Cute, right? Well, what's not cute is that half of all litters are accidents. And when a kitten has a litter of oopsies and a puppy has a litter of uh-ohs, pretty soon you have thousands and thousands of OMGs. And that leads to millions of pets being killed in shelters each year. But if 80% of people with pets say they believe in spaying and neutering, then what gives? Turns out that those sweet little fuzzballs can get pregnant sooner than you think. A lot sooner. But here's the good news. You can stop the accident before it happens. You just have to remember one number, 4, as in 4 months. When you bring home Maggie or Ruby or Puddles or Clyde, get them fixed at 4 months old. It can be old enough to get pregnant, and it's definitely young enough to make a difference. Prevent more. Fix at month 4. Visit fixat4.com for more information. Brought to you by Best Friends Animal Society.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
There's a threat targeting America. One that's growing fast, but may still be hard to see. Lyme disease. Spread by tiny ticks, often smaller than the head of a pin. This dangerous disease is now more widespread than West Nile, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS combined. And if left untreated, it can lead to arthritis, facial paralysis, and even memory and concentration problems, often called brain fog. As the threat of Lyme disease grows to more than 300,000 projected cases each year, it's time for us to target Lyme disease. That means checking for ticks when you've been outside, even in your own backyard. It means seeing a doctor if you experience the symptoms of Lyme disease, which can include joint pain, flu-like symptoms, fever, fatigue, or sometimes a bullseye-shaped rash. Set your sights on stopping Lyme. Learn how you can target Lyme disease at targetlyme.org.
We're here early before they wake up. We stay late. We stay informed. We invest in the latest technology.
We take the time to train the next generation of doctors and nurses. We work together to make sure we heal their bodies and their minds.
We do this not because it's our job, but because this is about our veterans' lives. This is our mission. More than 300,000 of us working as one, together with families and loved ones. No matter where they live in this country, we'll be there.
We all come together and stand together to serve our veterans. We stand strong, united. Stand with us in caring for our veterans.
The Red Cross responds to nearly 66,000 disasters every year, most of them house fires. Red Cross President and CEO Gail McGovern says you need to develop an evacuation plan and practice it, especially with your children. It takes just 2 minutes for a home to be engulfed in flames.
Practice those drills. We all think our kids know what to do. They don't. We need to teach them. We have started a large campaign where we're going into vulnerable communities and helping install smoke alarms. Already 92 lives were saved, and 4 of those lives were saved by a 5-year-old girl who remembered what we taught them during these fire drills, and she got her family out. We also have a slew of free apps that people can download onto their smartphones. It's what to do in every kind of disaster you can imagine, how to prepare and how to recover.
To help support all the Red Cross does and to make a financial donation, go to redcross.org. That's redcross.org.
Well, everybody, I'd like to end tonight's show by saying, if you have a suggestion for a future upcoming show, or you yourself would like to share your story with issues you're having with the VA, please contact me at craverstudiosfla@gmail.com. That's Craver, C as in Charlie, R-A, V as in Victor, E-R, Studios, S-T-U, D as in Delta, I-O-S, F-L-A, Foxtrot Lima Alpha, @gmail.com. And if you're a Facebooker, please join my group, Camp LeJeune Victims, The Faces. And be sure to tune in every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to remember the fallen, only on KLRNRadio.com. Scroll down to Remember the Fallen and catch Sergeant Dave Matthews and listen to him as he discusses other issues with today's veterans in America. Good night, everyone, and remember, what doesn't kill you does make you stronger. This is Tara Craver, and I am 10-7.